I want to start with a sensation, a feeling that I think is going to be uncomfortably familiar to you.
Oh, boy.
It's not exactly an emotion, it's more of a physical weight. You know, that specific dread that hits on a Sunday afternoon?
Uh-huh. The Sunday scaries.
Exactly. You've technically had a weekend, you've slept, you've eaten, you haven't been, hauling coal or digging ditches.
Right.
But you sit down, maybe you glance at your phone, and you feel this crushing pressure in your chest, this absolute soul-deep weariness.
And then the guilt kicks in.
That's the part that really twists the knife. You feel guilty about being tired.
Because you look at your life and you think, I have it easy. I mean, you work in a climate-controlled office or maybe from your own living room. You have access to food, entertainment, safety.
Great.
By any historical standard, you should be ecstatic.
I'm not fighting off wolves.
Yeah.
I'm not dodging arrows. So why do I feel like I'm slowly dying? Why does checking my inbox feel like a physical assault?
That question, that why do I feel like I'm dying when I'm supposedly living the good life, that is the central mystery we are investigating today.
Okay.
And I have to warn you, the answer isn't comforting. We are not looking at a self-help book that tells you to, organize your calendar or practice mindfulness.
Wow.
We are looking at a text that reads more like a psychological horror story about the modern condition.
It really does. I mean, the atmosphere of this text is just suffocating.
Yeah.
We're diving into the Burnout Society, or Sposis tu Epilenia in the source material we're using by the philosopher Byung-Chul Han. And Han's argument is that the way we live, the very structure of our supposed freedom, is actually a highly efficient machine designed to burn us alive from the inside out.
His premise is so startling because it challenges our most basic assumption, which is that we are free.
Right. That's the bedrock of our society.
He says we've moved from a society of prisons and prohibitions to a society of gyms, glass office towers, and limitless possibility.
And the twist.
The twist is that this freedom is a trap. It's a prison without walls. And because there are no walls, you can never escape it.
That is the mission for this deep dive. We are going to map out this invisible prison. We need to understand why we are destroying ourselves voluntarily, why hustle culture is actually a form of violence.
And why the old psychological maps, especially the ones drawn by Sigmund Freud, are completely useless for navigating the modern mind.
We're lost.
We have to throw out the old maps because the terrain has shifted completely beneath our feet. What Han describes is a mutation, a fundamental change in the human psychic apparatus.
We're not just stressed.
No, we're evolving into something else entirely.
Okay, so let's trace that evolution. To understand where we are, Han insists we have to look at where we came from. He spends the opening of the essay analyzing what he calls the old world.
The disciplinary society.
The disciplinary society.
This is the world of, say, the 19th and early 20th century. If you want to visualize it, just think about the architecture of that era. What are the dominant structures you see?
It's heavy, right? Industrial stuff. Red brick factories with high walls, military barracks, prisons, insane asylums with these huge iron gates. It's a very physical, enclosed world.
Precisely. It was a world of enclosures. You were either inside or outside. You were sane or mad. You were a law-abiding citizen or you were a criminal.
Very clear lines.
Very clear lines. And the operating system of that society was what Han calls negativity. The defining word was no.
No. And the German word he uses is sollen, right? Which translates to should or duty.
Yes, exactly. You should do this. You must not do that. It was a world of prohibitions and obligations.
A binary world.
And this environment created a very specific type of human mind. This is the mind that Sigmund Freud was analyzing.
Okay, so Freud's theories were built for a world of walls, a world of no.
Completely. Freud's entire model of psychoanalysis is a hydraulic system of repression. It's all about pressure.
How so?
Well, you have a desire, a sexual impulse, a violent urge, a wish to be lazy, but the state or the church or your father says no. So what do you do with that desire? You push it down, you bottle it up.
You shove it down, you repress it, and that repression creates immense pressure inside you. The superego acts as a harsh internal policeman, beating back your desires.
So your mind is a pressure cooker.
And if the pressure gets too high, you crack. You develop hysteria or neurosis. You go crazy because you are holding too much in.
So if I was having a breakdown in, say, 1910, it was likely because I wanted to be free, but society was a cage. My soul was literally banging against the bars.
That's the classic Freudian conflict in a nutshell. Obedience versus desire.
Yeah.
But Han's argument, and this is really where the floor drops out, is that the cage is gone.
Gone.
Look out your window today. We don't build high walls. We build glass towers.
We have open concept offices. We have those glass Apple stores. Everything is transparent.
The landscape has changed. It's not hospitals and barracks anymore. It's fitness studios, airports, shopping malls, biotech labs. These are not spaces of confinement. They're spaces of flow, of movement.
And because the architecture changed, the verb changed. We moved from a culture of solon, should, to a culture of können, can.
From you must to you can.
Think of the slogans that define our era. Obama's yes we can.
Nike's just do it.
Exactly. The modern individual isn't an obedience subject anymore. Han calls us achievement subjects. Leistung subject. We aren't subjects of obedience. We are projects of freedom.
I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because on paper, that sounds objectively better. I mean, I would much rather live in a world of yes, we can than a world of no, you must not. Isn't this just progress?
It's progress in terms of political liberty, absolutely. But Han argues it's been catastrophic for our psychology.
Catastrophic. Yeah.
Because when you remove the no, you remove the limit. Freud's whole concept of the unconscious relies on repression, on things being hidden away in the dark.
Right. The things you're not allowed to think or do.
But in a society of total transparency and infinite can, nothing is hidden. We aren't repressed anymore. We are overstimulated.
So we traded repression for what?
For compulsion. And this is the terrifying part. Han argues that the pressure to can is actually far heavier, far more crushing than the pressure to should.
How does that work? I mean, can feels like an option. Should feels like an order. If I tell you, you can go to the gym, that sounds a lot nicer than you must go to the gym.
Okay, but think about it through the lens of a philosopher like Immanuel Kant. He talked about the moral subject, the person who lives by should. Doing your duty is usually unpleasant, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to pay your taxes or serve in the army, but you do it because the king or the law says so. The compulsion is external to you.
It's a burden placed on your shoulders by someone else. You can resent it.
Exactly. You can hate the king in private.
Oh.
But the modern achievement subject, we are hedonists. We're told we should love our work.
God, the phrase, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Which is the biggest lie ever told.
It just means you work every single day because your identity has become your work.
That's the trap. If you work for a king and the king goes to sleep, you can stop working. You can mentally check out. But if you are working for yourself, if you are the entrepreneur of your own life,
there's no clocking out. You are the boss and you are the employee.
There is no off switch. You are always with yourself. The can becomes infinite. You can always make more money. You can always be fitter. You can always learn a new language or optimize your sleep schedule.
They can creates a generation of people who are exhausted, not because they are oppressed, but because they are able.
And there's a line in the source material that gave me chills. Han says, the can is much more efficient at extracting productivity than the should.
Why?
Because it relies on voluntary self-exploitation. You don't need a guy with a whip if the worker whips himself in the name of self-optimization.
Wow.
Should has a limit. Once you do your duty, you're done. But can never ends. It's a horizon that's always receding.
This leads us directly into the second major theme of the essay, which I think really helps explain why we're whipping ourselves. Han calls it the narcissistic trap. And we need to be careful with this word because in pop culture, narcissist just means like a jerk who takes too many selfies.
Right. It's used as a simple insult. But Han, following the sociologist Richard Sennett, uses narcissism in a much deeper, more structural sense.
It's not about vanity or self-love.
It's almost the opposite. It's about a loss of boundaries.
Yeah.
It's a character disorder where the other disappears.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does the other mean in this context?
Historically, to feel gratified, to feel a sense of completion or reward, you needed an other.
Someone outside of yourself.
Yes. This could be God, a king, a master, or even just a strong, cohesive community. You performed an action, and the other recognized it, validated it.
Like the biblical line, well done, good and faithful servant. There's a transaction, I give my labor, and the other gives me recognition.
And crucially, that recognition brings closure. It says, it is finished. You've done enough.
But in the achievement society,
the other has slowly dissolved. God is dead for many. The community is fragmented into individuals, and your boss isn't a master. They're just a facilitator or a team leader.
So who are we trying to please? Who gives us that recognition?
Ourselves. We're looking in the mirror. And this creates what Han calls a crisis of gratification. Because when you are your own judge, The trial never, ever ends.
You can never satisfy yourself because you know you could have done slightly better, pushed a little harder.
Exactly. The narcissist, in this philosophical definition, is someone who has drowned in the self. They project themselves onto everything. When they look at the world, they don't see the world. They see reflections of their own ego.
They're constantly asking,
how does this serve me? How does this make me look? How can I use this to optimize?
so it's like being trapped in a hall of mirrors.
And that is a terrifyingly lonely place to be. If you can't encounter the other, something that isn't you, something that resists you, that challenges you, you can't experience meaning.
Because meaning comes from connection.
Right. And if everything is just you, there is no connection. There is only echo.
And this is what leads to burnout, this drowning in the self.
This is the mechanism of it. Han is very, very specific here. Burnout is not a conflict. It's not a battle between opposing forces, like in Freud's world. It is an infarction of the soul.
An infarction like a heart attack, a blockage.
It's an implosion. You are competing with yourself in what he calls an absolute competition.
We're trying to outrun your own shadow.
And since you can't outrun your shadow, you eventually just collapse. The soul burns up from an excess of positivity. Too much too much self.
It's not that the battery ran out of charge. It's that the engine overheated and melted because it was revving in neutral with no friction to push against.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Friction gives us traction. Without the other, without the no, we just spin until we melt down.
This distinction between conflict and excess is really important when we get to the topic of depression. I think most people use burnout and depression almost interchangeably.
They do.
But Han draws a really sharp technical line between them, especially when he critiques another thinker, Elaine Ehrenberg.
Right. This is a bit of a philosophical heavyweight fight that happens in the text.
So who is Ehrenberg?
Elaine Ehrenberg wrote a famous book called The Weariness of the Self. And he argued that depression is basically the burden of sovereignty. It's that we're tired because it's just too hard to be ourselves all the time.
Which feels true. I mean, decision fatigue is a real thing. It's exhausting to have to make every choice and constantly define your own identity.
It is. But Han says Ehrenberg is still thinking in the old Freudian way. Ehrenberg thinks depression is a conflict between our limitless possibility and uncontrollable reality.
The friction of trying to be a Superman and failing.
Exactly. But Han's response is radical.
He disagrees.
He says, no, depression isn't a conflict. Depression is what happens when conflict disappears.
Wait, hold on. How can the lack of conflict make you depressed? I thought peace was the goal. If I have no conflict in my life, shouldn't I be happy?
But conflict requires an opponent. It requires a no. It requires a boundary to push against. If you live in a world where everything is yes, where everything is possible, but you still can't move, that isn't conflict. That is paralysis.
It's a systemic violence.
Caused by the inability to say no, to have nothing to push against.
He uses the comparison to melancholia to explain this, and I found this really, really helpful.
Yes. Think of melancholia as classic sadness, the kind Freud wrote about. You lose a loved one, you lose a job, you lose a belief system. You are sad about something specific.
There's an object. I'm holding a heavy stone in my hand, and the stone is my grief. I know what it is.
Exactly. You are tied to that object. There's a relationship there, even if it's a painful one. The melancholic person is still connected to the world through their loss.
The depression.
Depression, in Han's view, has no object. It is formless. You aren't sad about something. You are just heavy. It's a radical separation from all ties, all connections.
So melancholia is holding a stone. Depression is trying to hold a fog.
A crushing, shapeless fog. And because it has no form, it destroys what Freud called character.
How so?
Freud thought character was built by scars, by overcoming repression, by fighting battles. The scars give you shape, definition. But the modern depressed subject has no scars because they have no enemies. They are elastic.
Elastic? That sounds like a job requirement on LinkedIn. Must be agile and adaptable to a fast-paced environment.
That's the terrifying irony, isn't it? We have molded our psyches to fit the demands of the economy. The market wants us to be shapeless, adaptable, able to pivot instantly. Be water, as they say.
Just psychically.
Psychically, that shapelessness leaves us empty. We have no definition.
He quotes the political theorist Carl Schmitt here, who said something like, the enemy is our own question as a figure. Basically, if you don't have an enemy to push against, you don't know who you are.
And the modern person has no real enemies. We have competitors, we have haters online, we have Facebook friends, but we don't have the great other that defines us by opposition.
You just dissolve.
We dissolve into this puddle of exhausted positivity.
This leads to what I found to be the most disturbing, the most unsettling section of the entire book. Section 4, the violence of freedom. Because we are taught from birth that freedom is the ultimate good. If you are free, you are happy. It's the goal.
And Han just drops a philosophical hammer here and says, freedom is coercion.
That sounds like something a dictator would say. It's literally Orwellian. Freedom is slavery.
It sounds that way, but he means it psychologically. Let's think about the classic master and slave dynamic. This is a trope that goes all the way back in philosophy.
Okay.
You have the master with the whip, and you have the slaves doing the work. The slave is obviously oppressed.
Yeah.
But the slave has a secret freedom.
Which is?
He can dream of the day the master dies. He can fantasize about rebellion. He can sabotage the machine when the master isn't looking. There's a clear line. That guy over there is the oppressor. I'm the oppressed.
There's a target for your rebellion. You know who the enemy is.
Exactly. But what happens when you remove the external master? Did we become free?
Han says no.
He says we didn't stop being slaves. We just internalized the master. We absorbed him into our own heads.
We became master and slave in the same body.
And that is a perfect, hellish kind of efficiency. Because you can't rebel against yourself.
That there's no one to fight.
If you try to slack off, the internal master doesn't hit you with a whip. He hits you with guilt. He hits you with anxiety. He whispers, you should be doing more. Look at what your peers are achieving. You are wasting your potential.
Han calls this the internal concentration camp.
It's an extreme metaphor, and he uses it deliberately to shock us into seeing the structure. He says we run our own internal labor camps. We are the guard, the prisoner, and the executioner, all at once.
That explains why self-care so often feels like just another item on the to-do list. Like, I'm not resting because I want to rest. I'm resting so I can be more productive tomorrow.
Which completely defeats the purpose of rest. That's not rest. That's just pit stop maintenance for the machinery. You're servicing the engine so it can run another lap.
And Han calls this what?
Autoaggression.
Autoaggression, a war against the self.
The project of the self, the optimized, successful you, becomes a projectile that you aim at yourself. You are shooting yourself with your own ambition.
So depression and burnout are the casualties.
They are the physical manifestations of a war where the winner kills the loser, but they are the same person.
So if we follow this trajectory, we're these autoaggressive, narcissistic, exhausted shells running internal labor camps inside our own heads. What is the end game here? What kind of human being does this system produce?
This is where Han gets really prophetic. He brings in Friedrich Nietzsche.
The God is dead guy.
The very same. Now, a lot of people, especially in, say, the tech world or high finance, they like to think they're Nietzsche's Übermensch. The Superman.
The sovereign individual.
The disruptor who creates their own values and changes the world.
Move fast and break things. That feels very Superman. I am the captain of my soul.
Han says, absolutely not. You are not the Superman. You are the last man.
Okay, who is the last man? I'm not as familiar with him.
In Nietzsche's book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the last man is the most pathetic, contemptible creature imaginable. He is the absolute antithesis of greatness.
What does he want?
The last man doesn't want to conquer the scores or create transcendent art or take great risks. The last man wants comfort.
He wants a warm blanket, a steady Wi-Fi connection, and a pill to make the headache go away.
He wants health. He wants security. Nietzsche has this devastating line where he describes them sitting there blinking, and they say, we have invented happiness.
We have invented happiness. That sounds like the tagline for a new antidepressant or a meditation app.
It does, doesn't it? The last man is obsessed with his own biological survival. And this connects to another concept Han borrows, this time from the philosopher Giorgio Agamben, homo sacer.
This is a term from ancient Roman law, right? The sacred man.
Yes, but sacer, sacred, here doesn't mean holy in a good sense. It means accursed or set apart.
So what was he?
In ancient Rome, homo sacer was a person who'd been stripped of all political and civil rights. You could kill him, and it wasn't considered murder, but you couldn't sacrifice him to the gods because he was unworthy.
He was just a meat.
He was just bare life. And usually, a dictator or a sovereign power is the one who makes you homo sacer. He declares you an outlaw, an enemy of the state.
And Han's twist.
Han's terrifying twist is that in the Burnout Society, nobody needs to declare us homo sacer. We do it to ourselves. We voluntarily reduce our own lives to their life.
What does that bare life look like today?
It looks like the absolute obsession with health. Not health as a means to do great things like being fit so you can climb a mountain or build a house, but health is the ultimate goal in and of itself.
The end, not the means.
Right. We monitor our sleep, our steps, our heart rate variability, our glucose levels. We treat the body like a pet project that needs to be kept alive for as long as possible.
Because we've lost the bigger narrative.
Exactly. If you believe in God or in history or in a great cause, your life is a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and a meaningful end. You might even die for your cause, and that death would have meaning.
But if God is dead and history is over, what's left?
Just the body.
Yeah.
Just the biological shell. So we have to keep it running at all costs.
So we strip life of its vitality.
We stop smoking, we stop drinking, we stop taking risks, we stop falling in passionate, destructive love, because those things might damage the machine. We sacrifice the good life for mere survival.
That's a brutal trade-off. We're trading intensity for duration. We want to live to be 100, even if we're bored out of our minds for the last 40 years.
And that leads to the final zombie-like state that Han describes in his conclusion. He calls it the undead society.
This is the image that stuck with me the most. It's truly haunting. He says we are too alive to die and too dead to live.
Let's unpack that line because it really summarizes the entire theory.
Okay. Too alive to die.
We are physically healthy. We live longer than ever before. Modern medicine can keep the heart beating almost indefinitely. We look young thanks to Botox and relentless gym routines. We have optimized the biological substrate to an incredible degree. We can't be killed easily.
You're too dead to live.
We lack what he calls the negativity of life. We lack the sharp edges. We lack real pain. To truly live is to be vulnerable. To truly live is to risk being broken.
To love someone is to give them the power to destroy you.
Yes, but we don't want that. We want safe connections. We want risk-managed careers. We want predictable outcomes.
We are zombies.
We are fitness zombies. A zombie is a creature that keeps moving but has no soul. It has no will, no narrative. It just persists.
We're on the Peloton spinning nowhere forever.
Because we can't die.
We can't die. What does he mean by that?
To die, in a meaningful philosophical sense, implies a conclusion. A story ends. But our lives aren't stories anymore. They are just processes, open-ended projects. And processes don't end, they just crash.
Right.
Or they are terminated.
Like a social media feed. It doesn't have an ending. You just stop scrolling.
Exactly. We are trapped in what he calls the hell of the same. An endless, frictionless, positive present.
Look, this has been incredibly heavy. I feel like I need to go sit in a dark room for a while.
It's a heavy diagnosis.
We've gone from the deceptive freedom of a glass office tower to an internal labor camp and ended up as fitness zombies. If Han is right, and this is the very structure of our world, what are we supposed to do? Is there an exit?
Well, he doesn't give us a 10-step plan. He can.
Why not?
Because a 10-step plan would just be more can. That would be more hustle. Here is how to optimize your escape from optimization. It would be part of the same logic.
Right, so you can't hustle your way out of hustle culture. That makes sense.
But he does offer a philosophical pivot, a change in direction. If the disease is an excess of positivity, the excess of yes, the excess of can, then the only cure must be a dose of negativity.
We have to learn to say no.
We have to reclaim the power of not doing. He calls it negative potency. It's not just impotence, being unable to do something. It's the active conscious decision not to do something.
To stop.
To embrace boredom. To embrace what he calls deep tiredness. Not the exhausted burnout tiredness where your brain is fried and you can't function.
What kind then?
The kind of tiredness that brings people together. The kind of peaceful weariness where you can just sit with friends, do nothing, say nothing, and just be.
It sounds like he's asking for a Sabbath, a kind of secular day of rest.
In a way, yes. To deliberately step out of the hamster wheel of self-optimization and just be a self. To realize that you do not need to justify your existence with productivity.
You are not a project to be completed.
You are a being to be experienced.
That is terrifyingly difficult. I mean, to just sit in a chair and not look at a phone, not plan the next day, not listen to a podcast. No offense to our listeners.
It is the hardest thing you could do in this century. It requires more courage than running a marathon or launching a startup.
So the challenge we're leaving you with today isn't to work harder or be better. It's to ask yourself, are you brave enough to stop striving? Are you brave enough to be average? Are you brave enough to just stop?
It's the only true rebellion we have left.
I think I need to go stare at a wall for a while.
Enjoy the nothingness.
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.